Thank you, Senator Boland. Senator Marshall.
Well, thank you, Chairman, and I'm honored to be here today. Welcome to all of our panel. Believe it or not, I grew up in a union town. I remember the local union sponsoring a baseball team. By the time I was old enough, probably 17, I was working out at the oil refinery, a high school, college student, beside those union workers, and have nothing but good things to say about them. I was making $6 an hour, a great wage for a 17-year-old. The union workers were probably making 30. I was doing the same job they were. I got some of the dirtier jobs. Certainly, I understand that, the health needs. I figured out, I understood why they needed that union. My hometown, El Dorado, was in the suburbs, basically, of Wichita, where two-thirds of the small airplanes are built in this country, built with union labor. I didn't know any different. I just thought that, unions were, they were figuring out, and it was all working out just fine. Yesterday, met with the firefighters union. My dad was a firefighter. These folks firefighters are getting cancer at a young age. And I understand that role of the union out there fighting to help them, get proper compensation for that. I totally get it. I was proud to stand up and fight for my unions when there was the irresponsible vaccine mandates and my union workers. That's the only time the union workers ever complained to me was over this vaccine mandate. Otherwise, the process in Kansas seems to have a good relationship between management and unions. At the same time, franchises are home to Wichita as well. Wichita, Kansas, home of Pizza Hut, home of Freddy's, two very successful franchises as well. I can think of no other model that's helped minorities, women, and veterans have an opportunity to become small business people. So it's this balance that we're trying to find, and I think of my model as a physician, above all, do no harm. And my question about the PRO Act is, does it do harm? Does it hurt one more than the other? So I'm going to turn to Mr. Ring and ask that, look, franchises are a huge part of our Kansas economy and have a very different employer model than other businesses. Can you elaborate exactly what would happen to the franchisee relationship if the PRO Act were enacted? Same with franchises and their workers.
Sure, Senator. The issue raised really comes to this question of the joint employer standard, something that has been debated in labor law for a long time. The standard was in place for decades, and most of the United States, the franchisor model, grew up under that standard. Before the Obama-era board changed that standard and made it much easier to hold two employers responsible for the same workforce. When I was chairman, we issued a rule through rulemaking to return the standard to what it had been, and we thought that was the right way to do it. Through a rule, we were able to solicit comments and get input from all facets, all industries. And currently, the current NLRB is now looking at changing that back again. The PRO Act would do even more harm, as far as I'm concerned, in terms of the joint employer standard. It would essentially remove any impediments to a joint employer relationship and simply say that if you do business with another employer and you have any kind of reserve or contractual interest and control over that other business, you're a joint employer.
Okay, I need to move on. I'm sorry. Mr. Mix, I wanted you to answer the question, but I'm going to run out of time. Very briefly, would this harm the franchise model?
Well, I think so, but more importantly, it would harm the status of the right-to-work status of Kansas. I mean, I was briefed before the hearing today to say that the PRO Act doesn't repeal right-to-work laws. It just allows for negotiation over union security agreements, which are basically the compulsion to pay dues or fees or lose your job. So it would make a radical difference. And then the idea of the joint employer, I mean, let's say that you're a company that uses a landscaping company to mow your yard, and you have control over when they show up. how do we determine whether or not they're now a joint employer as it relates to unionization?
Right.
Lots of questions about that. And,
Right.
and to your franchise model, you're absolutely right about that. That's created more millionaires in America than anything else, probably.
Well, I appreciate the testimony. And Mr. Chairman, again, I would just conclude by saying, in Kansas, we have a pretty good relationship going on that allows the franchise model. It allows the unions. I'm concerned when the federal government gets too involved. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I don't think it has to be one way or the other. I think my union workers, what they're most concerned about today is inflation and the safety and security of their families. And that's what my focus is going to be, to help the union workers in America. So thank you.
Thank you, Senator Marshall. Senator Hassan.